I am Mary Roberts, and Debbie asked me to just share my story first before Mitzi and I present together. I am a food addiction recovery coach, and I have a passion to help all people, but women in particular, to help them heal their relationship with food. And so I'm hoping this morning in these first few minutes when I share my story that many of you will relate to it and that you'll get some clarity on why it is maybe that you have struggled with reaching your goals. So I have some questions for you. Raise your hand high if you've ever in your life, even just once, gone on a diet. All right. Yeah. How many? Okay. How many of you have gone on at least 5 diets? Keep your hand up. How 10 or more times? Okay, you get the drift. Yeah. How many of you have ever ate until you were stuffed and regretted it? Raise your hand if you've ever eaten in secret. Have you ever hid evidence that you ate something, like hiding wrappers, eating alone in the car, getting rid of the packaging before you get home? You ever done that? All right, here's one that I always have you ever ordered food that was for you, but pretended it was for multiple people? I did that. Have you ever tried to quit eating a certain food, but would inevitably cave and eat it anyway? The only answer. All right. Have you ever felt guilty about something you ate or how much you ate? Have your eating habits negatively impacted your life? Okay. For me, the answer to all of those was yes, for decades. I am a recovering bulimic binge eater and compulsive eater. My eating disorders and food addiction started as a preteen. And my first exposure to dieting was through my mom. When I was a kid, because she didn't have a babysitter, she took me to Tops. Does anyone remember what Tops was? Take off pounds sensibly. And that was like my first exposure to dieting. And it was there that I discovered that food had something called calories. And from that point on, I pretty much became obsessed. And I officially went on my first diet in high school. And I distinctly remember the end of it. And it involved a whole bag of pretzels. That sounds familiar to anyone. And from there, I discovered that I can eat and then throw it up. And that was the beginning of my bulimic era. And before I graduated high school, my parents ended up putting me in a hospital, an inpatient program at women's hospital for eating disorders. And I was there for about 8 weeks. They would watch me eat and then babysit me afterwards to make sure I didn't go purge. And they tried to teach me how to eat healthy, but I'm sure you can all imagine how that went. It did not go well. And that was basically the beginning of decades of me being disordered with food and attempts at dieting and attempts to lose weight. I would lose a little, gain it back. And then my weight was just up and down for decades. I did things like Dexatrim diet pills. Who remembers Dexatrim? How about Richard Simmons Steal meals?
Yeah.
Where you move the cards over when you ate. I counted millions of points with Weight Watchers. How about Susan Powter's Stop the Insanity?
Yeah.
Does anyone remember that? I ate so many bagels. So many bagels on that one. And yeah, Weight Watchers, countless calorie counting diets. I tried Benchmarine. I bought gadgets like Suzanne Summers Thigh Master. I did it all. You name it, I tried it. So I battled my eating disorder through 2 marriages and through the birth of 3 sons and all the way until 2014 at the age of 42 when a friend of mine told me about keto. I'd never heard of it before. And when I asked what it was, he told me I could eat all the bacon, eggs, and steak that I wanted. And I literally laughed out loud. I'm like, what? I'm trying to lose weight here. Because in my mind, that stuff was highly caloric and fattening. And that was not what you ate on a diet. But keto has literally saved my life. I healed, as they said in the intro, I healed multiple health issues like type 2 diabetes, psoriasis. I had high blood pressure. I was on meds for that. I had asthma and allergies all my life. I noticed, so from the age of 6, I carried an inhaler for my asthma. And about 6 months into keto, one day I just had this thought, where is my inhaler? Because I hadn't used it for so long. And I found it at the bottom of my purse, dusty, and things stuck to it. Yeah. So I realized, hey, I haven't needed this. It was wow. I was just expecting to lose weight. I wasn't expecting all the health issues to reverse and for me to get better. But anyway, here I am now over 12 years food sober. And what that means for me is that I don't eat what I call drug foods. I only eat real food. I don't attempt to moderate foods that I have a history of being unable to moderate. I'm not a moderator. And for me, one bite is too many and 10 is never enough. Anybody ever experienced that? You think, oh, I'm only going to have just one piece, one bite, this one cheat meal. And then it's like this domino effect and downward slide. And so that just, if we could moderate, that's one thing I want to say. If we could moderate, we would. There's some people who can. My husband is one of those people who will go out to eat and he'll order a $9 dessert and take 2 bites and be like, "Ugh, I can't finish it." And I'm like, what? I cannot relate to that at all. I'll eat my dessert and your dessert. So there are people like that. And then there's the rest of us. I always say that keto it saved my health, but it did not fix my eating disorder. That's one piece that I have in this space when people are like, all you got to do is just eat meat. Oh, really? Is that all? No, it's not. There's more to it than that. But it was, however, the vehicle that gave me the mental wherewithal to finally do the work that I needed to do to figure out why. Why am I disordered with food? Why have I turned to food to solve every problem in my life? Why? What are my real needs? I had to learn how to fill my real needs and not turn to food for everything. But now it took me a long time to do that. And now I teach other women how to do the same thing. So if you want to hear more about my story and my methods and my ways, you can check out, I do have a podcast called Food Freedom with Mary. It's on Spotify and Apple. And of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm excited now to present with Mitzi. She wants to come join me up here. We're going to talk about myths that may be keeping you from healing your relationship with food. Let me see if I can. All right. First of all, I want to thank the organizers, especially Debbie, for allowing us to go first. And we have very selfish reasons for that. That means that when we're finished, we can enjoy the rest of the conference and not worry about when it's time for us to present, right? And I'm also glad that we're doing this because we're talking about mindsets early on in the conference. And I think I want to set up the lens for you to look at all of this from the standpoint of your mindset, because it is very important. Just like Mary said, all you got to do is eat meat. Really, is that all you got to do is just eat meat? Now you got to get your mind right first. So I just want you to know, I met Mary on social media way back in the first time I met her in person was, I think it was 2017. We went to Alaska, right? Debbie? Yeah. And I told Mary was posting something about what should you wear in Alaska? And I gave her some pointers and I said, plus it's not really a fashion show. And she goes, oh, it's a fashion show for me. She has 3 suitcases. But anyway, she inspired me to be a little more dressy when I go on a cruise. She's inspired in that way. Now, Mary and I work together as Keto Evangelist coaches. Elena is still, she's like the OG, right? You're the one left behind. But who's been to KetoCon? Who knows about KetoCon? And we knew about Keto Evangelist. So we worked together doing that. Mary was my inspiration and I wanted so much to coach with her. And we're like besties now. So who was at Meatstock by show of hands? Who was there? Okay. Weren't you impressed that there was an entire panel just on mindset? Yeah. Very important. Okay. So I wanted to let you know that I do teach public health. I also understand that public health professionals have lost all credibility in the past few years. I want you to know that I do the very best that I can when I'm teaching these students to get them to think a different way. We do follow the curriculum, but I do tell them that they need to do their own research and that there is alternative information out there and they shouldn't necessarily believe everything that's in their textbook. So I do have a seat at the table and I'm trying to make changes from the bottom up because that's the only way change is going to happen. We can see right now, Make America Healthy Again. Change is not going to come from the top down. It's going to have to be from the bottom up. Okay, so that's enough about me, and you kind of know okay. All right, so we want to talk to you this morning about myths and things that you believe that may be holding you back from getting better. Because I think everybody in the room, if you've been exposed to this space online, seen a million of the food lists. You've seen people post their food pictures. You know what to eat. You know what to do. The problem seems to be in the follow through and that voice that's in our head telling us to do the thing opposite of the thing we say we want to do, and then caving into that. So we're going to talk about belief myth, mindset myths, and recovery myth. And so recovering from disordered eating, we know it's not just about the food. It's also about the stories and the lies that we believe. So Mitzi's going to talk about, we all have a story. And when I work with people in the context of disordered eating, I reference what I call the voice of sabotage. And also I've named it ED. And ED does not stand for erectile dysfunction. It stands for eating disorder. And so the voice of the eating disorder in our head is the voice that says things to us like, oh, but you're on a cruise, eat all the things, enjoy it. And when you get back home, you could start over. That voice says, oh, just have one bite. That voice says, it's your birthday. You should have cake on your birthday. And it's always that voice that's sending you back towards the thing that you're trying to get away from.
We all have a story. Our story problem is basically it's the things that we tell ourselves that we are so convinced that they are true, and things along the lines of, I've tried everything, or I just need more discipline, or this is just who I am, or it's genetic, all of these things. And they actually really do feel true to you. But what we're going to do today is we're going to challenge some of those ideas that you have and ask yourself, what evidence do I have that these beliefs these stories that I believe are actually true? So a lot of times what happens, these stories you end up telling yourself, usually it's because you kind of tried before you failed. So that becomes true. There's misinformation. A lot of this has to do with emotion. My focus for my PhD is to inform care. And Elena will talk about trauma, I think later you will address it. But I will tell you, a lot of times there are unaddressed issues from the past. And I know I did mention before, coaching clients, you start recognizing, and Mary can attest to this. I may be coaching somebody, we're talking about what you should do in your lifestyle, exercise, sleep, and I end up being a therapist. Right. They have other issues that you
So there's a mindset myth that if something is not working, that it must be us, and that means we need to quit. We think we're doing something wrong. It must just be us because we hear about other people that have success. And what we need to do is reframe that and think the strategy is probably what's broken. It's not you that's broken. And bad strategy does not mean that you are a bad or broken person, that you're a failure. Unless I think that's what happens. Like when we try something and it doesn't turn out the way we want, we think it's us. We're just like a loser somehow.
I just wanted to say something. People want to get results quickly, and we see someone else who you perceive they're doing the same thing that you are, and look at how quickly they are getting results and how quickly they've recovered their health. There is no time, there is no calendar for health recovery. I can't think of the word that I wanted to say. So you just need to be consistent, and you need to decide that this is what you're going to do, and that what you are consistent, you will see the results that you are going for.
We often think if we could just lose the weight, that everything will be fine. Or that's the one thing in our life that's the problem. And then that thing becomes the obsession, and true healing can't happen when all you're focused on is the number on the scale. I think you're focused on what we call diet behavior instead of digging into what the real problem is. Like, why do I turn to food every time I'm upset? Because we use it for our reward, our entertainment, to comfort and soothe, to celebrate. There's no we usually associate disordered eating with negative things, but also we use it to celebrate. I can think of countless of times where I was like, yay, about something, let's eat. That's always the answer where we go.
This isn't really about weight loss, it's about health gain, although the weight loss comes first. And that's really what brings us here is the weight loss. But then once you realize that health gain is so much more important than the weight loss, you want to be healthy. You want to be able to live. I want to be able to see my grandchildren graduate from high school, maybe get married, maybe become a great grandmother. Just do not obsess so much about the weight loss part of it, although I understand why that's important.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to focus on changing the relationship with food because all of us, everyone in this room probably lost weight at least once, right? We lose weight, gain it back, and then some, lose it again. Anybody can lose weight. The question is like, how many times do you want to keep doing that? So you have to address the relationship with food part so you can lose the weight and then not have to lose it again. That's pretty much like, yeah, it's not that losing weight is not the same thing as healing.
Okay. So how many here feel like you're just too old, you're too this, you're too that, you're too far gone, you're too addicted, you're too broken for this to work? Raise your hand. Okay. Those are myths. Those are not true because you can change and you just have to do it one day at a time, one step at a time. All right. Next. That's you.
Yeah. There's another recovery myth. Like, how many of you ever have been told, oh, it's real simple, just eat everything in moderation? Why didn't I think of that? For a lot of people, there are certain foods that it just triggers. That's going to trigger cravings, feeling out of control. And not everybody has the same response. So it's really frustrating as a coach and somebody who spends time online when someone with a seemingly perfect body, their fit, perfect six-pack abs is like, everything in moderation. When you do my plan, you can eat whatever you want and still lose weight. If you are a true moderator, that might be true, but most people don't become overweight, obese, or morbidly obese because they're moderators. That's just not how it works. So some people need clear boundaries. We don't need to negotiate with food. When I'm over 12 years food sober now, and if I didn't know 12 and a half years ago that I would never eat a Hershey bar again, they were a daily staple. I ate all kinds of things that I never realized that I could give up. But that is possible. And it's only because I don't attempt to try to have half a Hershey bar. If I were to do that, it would go downhill from there.
So before you move on, I just wanted to say where it says not everyone responds to food in the same way, that is so true. I highly recommend if anybody wears a CGM to see how your body reacts to food. You can ask your doctor to get one, or you can just buy one over the counter, I believe. And that is very true. Some things that someone else can eat, you most definitely cannot.
So we need to think of, when we think of abstinence, when alcoholics and drug addicts go into rehab, they don't go into rehab and the goal of the rehab is to teach them how to have just 2 drinks on Friday night and move on with their life. They're not telling them everything in moderation. No, they know that if they use the alcohol or use the drugs, that it's going to lead to a bad place. They're going to end up dying. But when it comes to food addiction and eating disorders, we get the moderation message. And we also, society sells us this idea that our life is less than without certain things. I can tell you how many times people have said to me, you don't eat bread? You haven't had a birthday cake? I couldn't live without bread. And my sarcastic comeback to that is if you really think that your life is less than and not worth going on because you can't have bread, you need to find some other things in life that bring you pleasure. Food is not everything. We should enjoy our food. It should taste good, but we have to have boundaries. Boundaries are what create the freedom. Everything that I eat, I enjoy and it tastes good, but I don't eat the things that harm me anymore. And so when you're food sober, it reduces that, it can help reduce that food noise. That's like a popular term right now because of all the GLP stuff. Food noise. Everyone's heard of food noise, but basically what that is, it's that chatter from the voice of Sabotage that's saying, it's your birthday, it's just this one time, you're on a vacation, it's a holiday, and lots of other reasons, like people lose pets or they get in a car wreck, or like all the reasons you can think of to eat for comfort. And that's the food noise. It's that voice in our head.
So the belief myth, I just need more discipline. I need to try harder. I got to be stronger. I need to have more willpower. Okay. When Mary was up here presenting, she said that the ketogenic diet allowed you to be in the mind space where you could do the work that you needed. This is why this time it's going to be different for you. It's going to be different for you this time because the ketogenic diet does damn down food noise, and it puts you in a place mentally where you can do the work. As Mary said, I'm echoing her. But instead of thinking you're blaming yourself, you're internalizing this. We live in a food landscape where foods are hyper palatable. They have been designed to make you want to eat a lot of it. And then once you start eating real food, which by the way, real food doesn't have any ingredients, real food is an ingredient, right? Okay. So just keep that in mind. That's why this time, I'm so glad that you are here. For those of you that have been doing this for a while, the OGs, this is great. Anybody who's new that thinks, all right, I think in 2016, which was 10 years ago, I came on my very first low carb cruise, and I was sitting out there listening to these people speak. And that was the year that the ketogenic diet first hit the landscape. And I thought, I listened to it. And by the way, I was eating bread and desserts at dinner. I was rationalizing my eating disorder way of, oh, there is no keto police here. But I thought to myself, I can do this when I go home. And that's when I spent 48 years treating myself poorly. And I've spent the last 14 healing. So if you're good at quick math, know how old I am. Okay.
And what I just want to add, Mitzi said that eating the ketogenic tamps down the food noise, but I want to give a caveat to that. A real Whole Foods ketogenic, if you're buying the Duncan Hines mug cup thing at the grocery store, or you're making all the keto desserts and trying to still have a healthier version of what are typically drug foods for a lot of people, it's going to be harder and you probably will still have a lot of food noise. And I know that it can be upsetting to think about not having those things in your life. But I want you to think about, everybody talks, oh, I feel so restricted. I feel deprived. For me, the life of deprivation was being a size 20W in my pants and being 260 pounds and having diabetes and not feeling good and having all the health problems. That was the real restriction. Not having Hershey bars for 12 years. That's not restriction. That's freedom.
Very good. Okay. So this belief myth that craving is just a lack of willpower, that is not true. Okay. I don't want to like shame after overeating. We already talked about that. Self-blame. We already talked about the internalizing. I should be stronger. Why can other people stop when I can't? These are things that you're going to say to yourself. And I'm telling you that if you will buckle down for 30 days, anybody can do anything for 30 days, follow a strict ketogenic diet. You may mess up here and there, but at the end of 30 days, you reevaluate, and then you will realize that there is life beyond whatever the food was that you thought you could never live without.
Okay. So you have to flip the switch and realize that cravings, they aren't just physical. There's an emotional craving, and there's cravings that are caused by metabolic dysfunction. Hyperpalatable foods, even if they are keto friendly, even if they are grain-free, sugar-free, are going to still alter your reward pathways. And so also things that affect physical and emotional cravings is not getting enough sleep. If you're stressed, if your hormones are out of whack, and you don't know how to emotionally regulate, you don't know how to manage those emotions that you are usually stuffing with food, that's going to keep them going. Okay.
So the myth that this is just who you are, that is absolutely not true. It is not true. You need to ask yourself, you are not what you're the fact that you have if you're a disorder with food, if you're a food addict, that's not your identity. It's just part of your experience. Okay. I just looked at the next slide. I had a brain fart. Okay. So the reframe on this, a lot of times the reason why this is your identity, the reason why you have some of these beliefs is because they're learned from past experience. It's also adaptive. It's protecting you. Somehow, if you believe that I can't do this, you have a fear of failure, right? So a lot of times these voices of sabotage are definitely not true. Sound like they're true because they're in your head, right? So these are things that you're going to need to re-examine.
I want to give you something to think about. We think that voice that we're battling, we think it belongs to us because we are in our head about it. And we're like we're always having this dialogue back and forth. But I want you to think of it as we have our whole big healthy brain and there's a little black spot there. And that little black spot is the voice of sabotage. And if we don't rein it in, if we don't learn how to fight back, it grows tentacles and takes over our brain. And then that's when we feel like we're out of control. We have no choice. Just an example, like that voice is also very illogical, right? Just an example. I have a client who she's moving and she's been doing like all this packing. And she said, oh, I just haven't been able to get back on track because I'm just so busy with all this packing. And that her voice of sabotage has convinced her like that's true, that because she's packing, she hasn't been able to make like right eating decisions. So we talked about it. I'm like, okay, so you're packing, that's like a separate event. But so because you're packing, that means when you go to the restaurant and you order the burger, you are incapable of saying to the waiter, no bun, please, because you were doing packing. And that voice of sabotage is completely illogical and wants to convince us that this thing that is going on is the soul. That's the reason why we can't make the right choices.
I want to follow on with that. So a lot of times we revert to our old habits. Stress is a very stressful. So when I am stressed, my kid is out. I used to work from home during COVID. I would come downstairs and open the refrigerator. And look, then my daughter-in-law would say, "What got you stressed?" She said, "You come downstairs, you always open the refrigerator when something is stressing you out." So I was reverting to old habits under times of stress. And we do that because it's safe. It's a safe thing. We always revert back to our old habits. So recognize that when it happens and address it for what it is. It's no, I don't do that anymore. I don't do that more.
Another recovery myth is that healing means being perfectly consistent. How many of you have ever said, I'm an all or nothing person? Yeah. If I do something, I'm really serious about it. I'm 100%. I'm all in. So many people have said that. And we get stuck in this perfectionism and we're starting over constantly because that voice says the minute that we don't do something perfectly, the voice says, forget it. Yeah, we're starting over tomorrow. Right. So it could be 9:00 a.m. and you make a wrong eating decision and the voice says, oh, you already blew it. May as well just eat crap the rest of the day. And I like the analogy that I like to use is this. Have any of you ever had a flat tire and you pull over, you get out of the car, you're like, dang it, I had a flat tire. And the normal, sane, rational thing to do is to change the tire and get back on the road. Okay. Like when you have the one wrong bite or the one wrong thing, that morning decision, the normal, rational, sane thing to do is, okay, that was a bad decision, but my next decision is going to be a good one. And when we don't, it's like we're standing on the side of the road. Dang, I got a flat tire. May as well pile the other three. Make any sense. The voice of sabotage is completely irrational. So next time Ed tells you, oh, you've already blown it, you may as well eat all the things the rest of the day, I want you to picture you flattening all your tires. So who in here has read the book Atomic Habits? Okay. So I love the thing where he says you wake up every morning and you make a vote for the person that you want to be. So I do it on the cruise by taking the stairs, right? Little things that you do, park further from the parking lot. He actually, in my mind, I was like, I don't know how this works for him. But he said, if you want to join the gym and go to the gym, he goes, get up, get dressed, put your clothes on, drive to the gym, go in, stay 5 minutes, get on the treadmill for 5 minutes, and then go home. Because that was a vote. You are voting to be a person who goes to the gym. It's a vote for that. Before you know it, that is going to be your new habit. People that come on the cruise that are dedicated, they're in the gym in the morning. I've had Maria Emmerich coming back from the gym.
right? Because that's the vote for who she is, and she has become that person. But you start with taking little baby steps. When you go into the restaurant, you just tell them no bread. Who eats it out back? I just tell them, please don't bring that bread because I don't want you to waste it because it's for somebody else. Not that I think the bread is awful. It's just that I don't want you to waste it. But I don't eat bread. I'm not a bread eater. So I said this before, consistency matters more than intensity. So take it away, Harry.
Yeah. So it's through, we make changes through repetition. Okay. We cannot do it perfectly. There's going to be mistakes made along the way. And if we have that mindset and cave to that voice of sabotage every time something goes right, then we're stuck in that loop. You can only make progress by keep making the next right decision.
So I also want to put this in perspective. Oh, I want to put this in perspective for you. If you eat one low carb meal, are you expecting to see a result happen the very next day? No, no, no. Okay. Yeah. So the same thing goes with if you have one bad meal, is that going to undo I've been at this for 14 years. Certainly sure, not that I would, but if I had a piece of cheesecake, my life would not be over. I would not have undone the work that I've put in for 14 years. So for me now, the thought of driving the wagon off the road into the ditch and setting it on fire is not a reality for more. And eventually you will all be there too.
Another mindset myth is that I'll start when I feel ready. How many of you have said something along the lines of, I'm in Texas, we say we're fixing to do stuff. I'm fixing to get ready to get fixing to change. Like you have all these things that you got to do. Oh, I'll do it when I get all my ducks in a row, or oh, I'll do it when the kids go back to school, or I'll do it when the kids are out of school for the summer. There's always like our voice of sabotage has convinced us that there's this magical time in the future where it's going to be better or easier to do something, and it's not. And if we're not willing to do it today, we're not willing to do it tomorrow either. And so we just have to stop waiting. If it's something is important to you and you want to do it, you decide today is the day. Right now is the time.
How many of you have wanted to start a chore around the house and you say, I could really use a fill in the blank before you start the chore? That is your mind, what's the sabotage saying, oh no, you want to start coming out the garage until you go to Lowe's and buy all the plastic containers. That is true. That is your excuse. They rise to food here.
Okay. So bottom line is you don't have to feel ready. You have to be willing. You just have to be willing to take some action and take a step towards what you say you want. Another belief myth is I need to fix my body and everything about me before I can enjoy my life.
Take the prunes, wear the bathing suit, take the picture with your grandchild. I don't care if you look pudgy in that picture, because I guarantee you there's going to come a day someone's going to look back at that picture and they're not going to say, oh, geez, grandma had a belly roll. They're going to say, oh, look at grandma doing that fun stuff. Yeah. And we do that to ourselves and we think, oh, I can't do this until I've fixed whatever. I can't wear the clothes. You travel.
I want to say about the clothes. I work with a lot of women who say they feel terrible in their clothes, nothing fits, but they won't go buy anything new because they're like, I'm not going to buy new clothes till I lose the weight. But no matter where you are at in your journey, you deserve to be comfortable. So even if you have to go buy bigger size clothes temporarily to be comfortable, you're going to be better at decision making if you're comfortable. You cannot hate yourself into a place of healing. You cannot hate yourself to health.
And by the way, for the ladies in the room, I can only speak for the ladies. Chico's is great when you're addressing your influx body, when you are losing weight. Great. Okay.
Flip the switch. You cannot put your life on hold until you get to, and let me tell you something too about this. You think that when you get to a certain place that you'll be satisfied. I lost 100 pounds and thought that I still needed to lose 20 more. And then I started picking on other things. And then 8 years into my journey, I spent a lot of money on a tummy tuck because I was convinced "Look, if I just get this tummy tuck and this anxiety, I'll be happy." But don't you know, after the tummy tuck, it was like, "Oh, wow, I have mad wings." And like, it's always something. You're never going to be satisfied. So just accept that, try to accept where you are and acknowledge the good things that you are doing for yourself.
Yes, we are. And I would also like to point out that if you express gratitude, if you just wake up and give thanks for one or two things, and it can be simple little things like I'm thankful for technology, I'm thankful for Mary, I'm thankful for when you live and come from a place of gratitude, that it does cause a mind shift. It really does. And there's nothing in that in here. It just came to me as I was standing here. But next slide, I think.
All right. Why do people stay stuck? There's a lot of reasons, and they are all connected to the voice in our head.
Yeah. As I said before, a faulty strategy does not make you a bad person. I think this is your slide, actually.
Yeah. I like the things that are keeping you stuck, the things that you believe are wrong. There's some health and nutrition things that people still believe. There are people still believe we need whole, what do they call it? Whole heart, healthy, whole grain. And that there's all these things there's the cholesterol problem. Still, so many people believe that LDL is an issue, which I don't know. I won't go on about
How
that.
can you be healthy? You're just eating meat.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's these beliefs that we hold that keep us from making better decisions because we're hanging on to these ideas that aren't true. And people stay stuck in food obsession. I know you can be food sober and eating all the right things and still be thinking about food all day. It's just switched to now I'm focused on all the keto foods or whatever. So we want to, get out of that. And people are not dealing with their emotions, and so that keeps them stuck because you can only try to ignore them and avoid them for so long before you revert back to your old pattern of turning to food for soothing and comfort. And also that all or nothing thinking, that and it's connected to the perfectionism that is going to keep people stuck if you can't get out of that and remember that slow progress is better than no progress.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on something else. This food obsession thing, I realized that when you're coming to low carb, if you're new, that sometimes you need to bridge. Some people can't really flip the switch. So you're doing a keto treat or a keto-fied version of some foods that you used to eat in your old way. Keep in mind that the longer you continue to do that, the longer you are looking for that sweet taste or that type of food or that comfort thing. There's going to have to come a time where you are going to have to stop doing that. But if you're new on your journey, do not beat yourself up over that, because I'd much rather you have a keto-fied version of something than to blow it and go eat the real thing.
I said there's layers to our food sobriety. In the beginning, you just want to not put all the obvious things that you know are terrible to eat. You're just not eating those things. And so these alternatives, when I said earlier that you're still going to have food noise if you do that, that's true. But I'm not saying don't, no. I did that. I call these foods transition foods or gap foods. They bridge the gap. If I'd have known on day one that I couldn't have low carb blueberry muffins, my ed voice would have taken me out and I wouldn't have continued. But what you realize, as you go and you're using these alternatives, eventually you realize, hey, this is still stealing my peace. I'm thinking about it. The thought of not having it makes me upset. That's a sign. If the thought of giving something up upsets you, like you are emotional about it or you get angry about it, that's like a red flag that that you gotta give it up. And the food is still somehow it's controlling you.
Okay. In order to help you discern your personal truth, you have to ask yourself, whenever this voice comes in your head, is it true? Where did that come from? Think that. Is this helping me? Is it going to help me to heal? What evidence do I have that this is actually true? Right? What happens if I continue believing it? What's going to happen if I continue believing that after 7 days of being strict keto, that I can have a meal of anything that I want? That is not going to benefit me. And who is benefiting from you saying stop? The bottom line is it's big food, big pharma, your doctor, right? You're not benefiting from that. So we're going to talk about reclaiming your agency. And that you said that in the intro. And I said, that's what I help people do. I help them regain their agency and also become their own health detective. So first of all, you are definitely not broken. You can make different choices. You can learn new patterns. And this consistency is more than being perfect. Anything that's worth doing is worth doing poorly at first. You will get better at it.
Yeah. Also, anything worth having is worth working for. And it's not always going to come easy. You have to be willing to temporarily suffer. The idea in the beginning of my food sobriety and this keto journey, I cried literal tears in my car in the Costco parking lot because I did not buy the Costco cheesecake. And yeah, like that horrible just crying in the car. But I refused to give in. And so it was very upsetting. You have to be willing to suffer through some of those things. It's not always going to be easy, but it's always going to be worth it. So in order to change our outcome, have any of you ever heard that saying that when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's the definition of insanity. Expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. That's the same thing. Like, how many times are you going to attempt, let's just, for lack of a better word, a diet, and that's all you're focused on? At some point, you have to realize something else has to happen here. Something else has to change, or I'm just going to keep going from diet to diet, starting it, doing well for a while, and then something happens and I cave and I get right back in the cycle. I think most of the people in this room have experienced that loop. And if you want a different outcome, you've got to quit doing the same thing. You have to do something different.
Okay, so here is your call to action. All right. So you just think about one story or belief that you know is keeping you stuck. And then you need to question it, challenge it, replace it with your new truth, and then you can practice this new action immediately. So I'll give you this challenge. 10 years ago on my first cruise, I told you I ate the bread, I ate the desserts, I did all the things, right? Maybe tonight, if you're the person that had a bread at dinner last night, it may be no bread. It's as simple as that. Make a vote for the person that you want to be and the lifestyle that you want to live. All right.
Thank you.
So,
Okay. Anybody have questions or comments? Did any of you have an aha moment?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Atkins was my first introduction to low carb. I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, I did. Yeah. The problem I had with Atkins was it reintroduced things later. I always did great with phase 1, 2, and 3, but later it was downhill from there. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
right.
Absolutely. That is excellent. Thank you for sharing that. You don't have to go through this alone. We do have a great community here. You can go on to the Low Carb Cruise Facebook page for community, and you can reach out to us. You can see where to find us and find your community, find your people, spend time in your community, spend time with like-minded people. Okay. Because if you don't have a person at home that's supporting you, it can be a little more difficult.
Yeah, we don't grow in isolation. I always like to tell people that having connection to a community, connection is protection.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead. Yes, it's called figuring out what your why is. You have to know what your why is. But then Mary also said, once you're like, I want to lose 100 pounds before my son's wedding or something like that. So you lose 100 pounds. Your son gets married.
But then what?
But then what, right? So you need to pick a why that is important enough. And what does they say about you will change when the pain of staying the same
is greater than the pain of change?
Yeah. So I just cleaned out. I was a flip the switch, all or nothing mentality. I just cleaned out the pantry, cleaned out the refrigerator, spent probably $500 restocking my kitchen, and told my kid that I'm cooking, you're going to eat these foods. And she did okay. She has excellent eating habits now, and she is a cook because she knew mom's not going to make it for me. I better learn to make it. You just have to decide today's the day and you're going to do it. And then when you have the mess up, when you tire goes flat, you don't the other. Yeah. So you get back right on. Oh, Coach Mitzi, I screwed up. How do I get right back on track? Your next meal, make your next meal on track. You're back on track, right? You are. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The thing that was most helpful to me was like, I would literally talk out loud to my voice of sabotage. So and I called it Ed said. So when Ed would say to me, if I opened the pantry and I would see my family's food that they ate, we always have the cereal and all the things, right? And I'd open the pantry and I would look at that and I'd be like, oh, you're drawn to it. But I would just say out loud. So Ed's saying, you should have some. It's been so long. You've been so good. Look, surely this one time will harm anything. And so I would just literally say out loud, actually, Ed, that stuff does harm me. And also, that food belongs to my family. That's not my food. I would just talk back to Ed with the truth, like whatever the truth is to the lie that I was hearing. I just spoke the truth out loud. And sometimes it was very awkward and weird. And I remember one time my son, like I wasn't paying attention, but he was younger at the time. And when he asked me, his mom, who's Ed? Well, then I had to explain to my kid, not a guy, it's this voice in my head. But just speak the truth out loud. Is there something powerful about it? We get stuck in our head because, again, we think that voice is us. We have to see it as a separate entity. And when we speak out loud, we hear the truth in our own voice and it changes the picture.